I had just landed the biggest meeting of my career. The boardroom on the 73rd floor of Lenox Tower reeked of money, polished marble floors, floor-to-ceiling glass overlooking the skyline, and a long obsidian table that could fit 20. But none of that impressed me. I was here for one reason only, to secure funding for a community tech incubator that could change everything for underserved youth. I wore a tailored navy blue suit and carried my pitch with the calm confidence that only came from hard work. But I knew this room wasn't made for people like me, not yet. Then he entered. Robert Lansing. Billionaire. Venture king. Known for flipping startups like pancakes and crushing deals that didn't amuse him. He was the gatekeeper. He walked in, flanked by three men in gray. Cold, clinical, and arrogant. His eyes swept across the room and paused on me for half a second. I stood, extended my hand. Mr. Lansing, I appreciate you taking the time to meet with. He didn't even look at my hand. I don't shake hands with staff, he muttered flatly. Then he turned to his assistant. Let's get this over with. I didn't flinch. I just slowly lowered my hand, smiled tightly, and sat back down. He had no idea who I was. The room fell silent, tension thick as glass. I watched as Lansing casually flipped through my proposal like it was yesterday's mail. No greeting. No questions. Just a scoff. Community Innovation Hub, he said, barely disguising the mockery in his tone. You want $6 billion for social charity? One of his advisors chuckled under his breath. Another smirked and glanced at his watch. I sat straight and calm. It's not charity, I said. It's infrastructure. We're creating pathways into high-tech careers, into ownership, into futures people have been locked out of. It's scalable, profitable, and designed to uplift entire regions. Lansing leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers. You talk a good game. But let me be blunt. You're asking for the kind of capital that moves markets. And I don't invest in passion projects. He said, passion projects, like it was an insult. You're 10 years too early, miss. He glanced down, pretending to check the proposal. Ellis, is it? I nodded once. He closed the folder and slid it back across the table. I wish you luck. But this isn't a fit for Lenox Ventures. Then he stood up. Meeting over. Or so he thought that I didn't move. While Lansing straightened his blazer and headed for the exit, I reached into my leather case and calmly pulled out a single folder, thinner than the first. I figured you might say that, I said coolly, placing the folder on the table. That stopped him. He turned halfway. This, I continued, isn't a pitch. It's a signed letter of commitment. $7 billion in private and institutional backing, conditional upon Lenox Ventures' lead participation. The temperature in the room changed instantly. Lansing's advisors shifted in their seats. One of them reached for the folder, flipping it open. His face tightened. He passed it to the next. Lansing's icy composure cracked, just slightly. Who's backing you? He asked, his voice no longer bored. I stood, finally. Calm, collected, and in control. Stonebridge Capital. Ionis International. 5 sovereign wealth partners. And the Mason Trust, I said. They believed in this before even hearing the full plan. Because they actually looked beyond the surface. I walked toward him, slow and steady. They know who I am. Do you? He didn't respond. You just turned down the biggest economic revitalization project of the decade because you assumed I was staff. The room was dead silent. All the arrogance, all the condescension, melted into confusion, and now fear. Lansing's jaw twitched. He looked like a man trying to do math in his head, fast. Recalculating everything he'd just dismissed. You're bluffing, he said, though his voice had lost its earlier swagger. Call any name on that list, I said, pointing to the folder. They're waiting for my green light. But the deal included one condition: Lennox had first right of refusal. I leaned in, meeting his eyes without a shred of hesitation. "You just refused." One of his men whispered something urgently into his ear. Lansing's hand hovered near the folder, then dropped. "We can revisit the offer," he said finally, the edge of desperation creeping in. Perhaps I was hasty. "No," I replied sharply. "You were dismissive. There's a difference." He flinched. I took a breath. Not out of nerves, but to make sure he felt every second pass. "I came to you first out of respect. I admired your firm's legacy. But clearly, that legacy no longer includes vision." The folder lay on the table like a sealed fate. "I'll be taking this," I said, picking it up. "And giving the full deal to firms that saw me for what I am before I had to prove it." Then I walked past him, head high, heels clicking like thunder across the marble floor. He didn't follow. He couldn't. As the elevator doors slid shut behind me, I could see Lansing still frozen in place, surrounded by his silent team. His empire, built on instinct and dominance, had just misfired in real time. I exhaled slowly. The ride down from the 73rd floor was quiet, but my phone was already vibrating. A text lit up the screen: "Mason Trust, was that him in the room?" I replied simply, "Yes." And he just cost himself everything. When I stepped outside, the wind hit me like a fresh beginning. Parked along the curb was a sleek black SUV waiting for me, engine running. As I got in, my assistant, Ava, turned to me with wide eyes. "Well?" she asked. "Pull the trigger," I said. "Inform Ionis, Stonebridge, and the trust that Lennox is out. We move ahead without them." Ava grinned. "I'll let them know the deal's officially live." As she typed, another alert came in, this time from a major financial media outlet: "Breaking, billion-dollar urban innovation project secures $6 billion in private backing, Lennox Ventures reportedly passed." Lansing's name wasn't even mentioned. Because this story wasn't about him anymore. Within hours, the story exploded. Every major financial publication picked it up. Headlines hailed it as the boldest urban tech investment in a generation. Commentators called it a power shift. Investors called it historic. But behind the buzz, something deeper was happening. I wasn't just another founder getting funding, I was a symbol of something the old guard failed to see coming. Calls flooded in. Some from firms that once ghosted me. Some from journalists who now suddenly wanted interviews. But I kept them waiting. Because I had a press conference to attend. When I walked onto the stage the next morning, flanked by representatives from Stonebridge and Ionis, I didn't open with numbers or projections. I opened with truth. For years, people like me have had to work twice as hard to be taken half as seriously. But that ends today. Cameras flashed. This isn't just about innovation or economics, it's about recognition. It's about dismantling the idea that power only looks one way. I paused, letting that settle. Yesterday, I was dismissed as staff. Today, I control $6 billion in funding. So let this be a message: assumptions are expensive. The room erupted. Not in polite applause. In roaring, standing ovation. Hours later, tucked away in a quiet corner of a rooftop celebration, I stood alone with a glass of sparkling water in hand, watching the skyline shimmer. The deal was done. $6 billion. Hundreds of jobs. Entire neighborhoods about to be transformed. But what satisfied me most wasn't the capital, it was the shift in the room. I wasn't just tolerated. I was respected. Unquestioned. In command. Ava approached with her phone out, a smirk on her face. "You'll want to see this." She handed it to me. It was a video clip. From inside Lennox Ventures. Someone had leaked security footage from the meeting. It showed me extending my hand. Lansing refusing to shake it. Then, 7 minutes later, me walking out with the folder that changed everything. The clip had gone viral. Caption: she was just staff, now she owns the room. I handed the phone back with a quiet chuckle. Let them talk. And they did. Not just in financial circles, but everywhere, from classrooms to boardrooms, from grassroots organizers to Fortune 500 CEOs. Not because I was loud, but because I refused to be invisible. The billionaire didn't lose a deal that day. He lost a generation of vision. And I built something no one could take from me, legacy. 2 days later, Robert Lansing sat alone in his office, blinds drawn, tie loosened, and silence louder than usual. The media storm hadn't died down. If anything, it was gaining speed. He had avoided most calls, even from investors demanding answers. But when the red line on his desk rang, the one reserved for legacy partners, he had no choice but to pick up. Lansing, he said, trying to sound composed. The voice on the other end was cold and surgical. Robert. This is Eleanor Mason. Lansing straightened instantly. I've been meaning to reach. No, she cut him off. You were meant to lead that deal. Instead, you insulted the architect and watched $6 billion walk away. Do you even realize what you cost us? He opened his mouth, then closed it. There was no excuse. From this point forward, Eleanor continued, you're no longer our first point of contact for urban innovation projects. We're reallocating. A pause. To her. Lansing blinked. You're giving her direct authority. She earned it. You had the chance to lead. She became the leader. The line went dead. For the first time in years, Robert Lansing wasn't feared. He was forgotten. 3 months later, the groundbreaking ceremony was held on the very land that once sat abandoned, cracked, and forgotten by the city. Now it buzzed with engineers, architects, and entrepreneurs from every background imaginable. A new campus was rising, a beacon for innovation, creativity, and empowerment. A place where no one would ever be seen as just staff. I stood at the podium beneath a massive steel arch that would soon read, Ellis Center for Innovation Equity. The crowd was electric. Dozens of news cameras lined the front row. Young girls clutched tablets and notebooks, watching with wide eyes. Investors stood beside teachers. Mayors stood beside community leaders. It was the future, right here, breathing. I stepped up to the mic. People often ask me what made me walk into that boardroom that day. Was it courage? Was it strategy? I looked out at the sea of faces. It was memory. The memory of being overlooked. Underestimated. Ignored. I built this place for everyone who's ever been mistaken for the help when they were the one bringing the vision. Applause thundered. But behind it, I saw what mattered most. In the very back row, 2 young interns stood watching, wide-eyed. One of them whispered to the other, she runs all of this. And the other whispered back with a smile, no. She built all of this. Later that evening, after the crowd had dispersed and the sun dipped low behind the skyline, I stayed behind at the new center, alone, walking the polished halls that still smelled of fresh paint and purpose. In one of the glass-walled boardrooms, a long, hand-carved oak table stood surrounded by 20 seats. It wasn't just furniture. It was a message. Every chair had a nameplate. Not of investors. Not of CEOs. But of students, mentors, single parents, teachers, and engineers from the neighborhoods this center would serve. The people who were often left out of important conversations. Not anymore. I paused at one nameplate, Danielle, 17, future founder. It was written in gold. She'd pitched an idea last week that made 3 VCs pause mid-sentence. I sat in that room by myself, knowing that I'd finally done it. Not just broken into the system, but rewritten it. Outside, a new sign flickered on for the first time. The Ellis Initiative, built by vision. Powered by people. And just like that, the girl once denied a handshake was now extending her hand to thousands. This time, everyone reached back. That a week after the center officially opened, a letter arrived, delivered by courier, handwritten on thick linen paper. It was addressed to me. From Robert Lansing. I stared at it for a moment, debating whether to even read it. But curiosity won. Ms. Ellis, you were right. About everything. I built my career thinking instincts and control were all that mattered. That presence was power. But I didn't recognize true leadership when it was sitting in front of me, because I was too busy protecting a gate I no longer owned. You've not only proved me wrong, you've redefined what leadership looks like. If I ever have the honor of sitting across from you again, I won't make the mistake of assuming who holds the real power in the room. Respectfully, Arthur Lansing. I folded the letter and placed it in the drawer. Not out of pride, but as a reminder that the same people who overlook you today may one day write your name with reverence. I turned toward the window, the skyline glowing beneath the night sky. This wasn't just a win. This was a beginning. That night, after the applause faded, after the last handshake, and after the final light shut off in the Ellis Center, I stood alone in the mirror of my office, just me and the reflection. No cameras. No audience. No headlines. Just the woman behind it all. And for the first time in years, I let myself truly feel it. The journey. The doubt. The doors slammed shut in my face. The boardrooms where I was invisible. The billion-dollar deals that were never meant for people like me. I thought about the younger version of myself. The one who used to practice pitches in her bedroom mirror. Who read business books from second-hand stores. Who once got mistaken for the receptionist in her own startup. And now, she was the CEO of a $6 billion revolution. I looked at my reflection, strong, calm, radiant with quiet fire, and smiled. Not because I made it, but because I made space. And the next girl watching from the shadows? She won't have to fight this hard. Because the door, it's wide open now. Fade to black.